Evening. It is now 6 o'clock, and I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Mayor and Council. In just a moment, I'm going to ask Reverend Samuel Dawkins of the First United Methodist Church to lead us in the invocation, and followed immediately after that the Pledge of Allegiance by Officer Tyler Morris. And when we have finished those two, I'm going to make a few remarks about those gentlemen. So if you would all please rise, and I'll ask the Reverend to come up. Right over here, sir. Lead us in the invocation, please.
Let's pray together. Gracious and loving God, we thank you so much for the city of Rica, its leaders, and all who call this place home. We pray for your wisdom, guidance, grace, and goodness to guide us during this meeting where we get to gather together and make decisions and set a direction that will hopefully lead this city to greatness in the future. And so, God, we just pray for your Spirit to descend upon this place and lead us in that act. It's in your precious and holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, officer, you would come up, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. You all may be seated. Reverend Sam Dawkins is a United Methodist pastor from Conyers, Georgia, currently serving at the First United Methodist Church of Villa Rica as of July 1st. He graduated from the University of Georgia and the Candler School of Theology. He is married to Natasha, a physical therapist in Carrollton, and they have a 3-year-old son, Noah. Thank you, sir, for being here. Where did he go? Oh, all the way in the back. All right, Officer Tyler Morris grew up in the Powder Springs area. Before being hired by VRPD, Officer Morris worked in the Atlanta film industry and as a service technician for GM dealerships. He joined the Villa Rica Police Department January 3rd, 2023, and has worked night shift since completion of the police academy. Thank you, sir. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your service. I'll tell a little story. You were working the concert Friday night, and you came in, and it reminded me when you started the Pledge of Allegiance just now. You have that really deep voice, and somebody in the room said, "That's a really deep voice," and you said, "I've heard that before." And I thought that was interesting. Thank you for being here. Okay, we got to do a little housekeeping tonight, so I am going to recess this meeting for just a few minutes. So this meeting will be recessed, and I am going to move over to the Urban Redevelopment Agency agenda. I'm going to call that meeting to order. And I am going to ask for a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion from Mr. Carter to adopt the agenda for the Urban Redevelopment Agency. A second from Ms. Marchman. All in favor? That is unanimous. The item A1 under governing body is the approval of the August 18, 2023 minutes. I'm asking for a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
I have a motion from Mr. Momptahan to approve the minutes of the August 18, 2023 meeting of the Urban Redevelopment Agency. I have a second from Ms. Marchman. All in favor? That is unanimous. I'll recognize someone for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
I have a motion from Ms. Marchman to adjourn, a second from Mr. Carter. All in favor? I will adjourn the meeting of the Urban Redevelopment Agency, and I will return to from recess on the regular session. I'll look for a motion to adopt the agenda on the regular session.
So moved.
That's a tie.
Okay.
I'm going to have a motion
Second.
to adopt the agenda from Ms. Marchman, a second from Mr. Carter. All in favor? All right, the agenda has been adopted. Okay, it is now time for public comments. Do we have the public comment sign-up sheet? Okay, let's get that. Give us just a minute. All right, so we're going to open up for public comments here. Please keep your comments on a professional level. We'll not accept comments that are considered by the chair to be of a personal attack on any individual or group of individuals. If you deviate from this protocol, you'll receive a warning from the chair. If you deviate a second time, you'll be asked to leave. Only one person speaking at a time, and please, no comments from the audience. Please address your comments to the mayor and council. And just as a reminder, it is highly normal that we would not engage. These are your 3 minutes. Madam Clerk, do you have the timer? Okay. We're going to start out with Tommy Jackson. Is there a Tommy Jackson here? He left? Okay, and before I do that, let me also say that if you are here on an item that is has a public hearing on it, if that's what you're here for, that item will come up separately, and when it does, you can be recognized for a public hearing on that. You can do both, but some people don't want to do both, so it's up to you. All right, next up, Michael Young. If you are here for a public hearing and I call your name, you can just let me know you're here for a public hearing and I'll skip you. Mr. Young.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Michael Young, 9634 Coastal Point Drive, Villa Rica. I was hoping to get some clarification about consent number 5, the design of Punkintown Road rebuild. In the streaming session, there was a comment made that you are not going to rebuild from Town Creek to the mini traffic circle because that's the low volume piece of Punkintown. So I'm wondering how that's low volume when the rest of Punkintown is high volume. Where does that volume go? Does it go to that spur through that commercial development that's supposed to have speed tables and vegetation that arcs over to make it look like it's not a very big opening? Where's that volume that goes from Punkintown, from Shoreline to Town Creek, and then disappears?
Okay, so I'll try to come back to that when we finish. Let's get Rhonda McCullers. Ma'am, give us your name and address for the record, and we'll give you 3 minutes.
Rhonda McCullers, 401 North Lost Lake Cove, Villa Rica. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am here just to say we had a great gold rush. It was an awesome time. I also would like to publicly thank the Mayor and Council, Miss Sarah, Elisa, Madison, Karina, the girls at Main Street who did a jam-up job with everything. The city guys, the sponsors, the volunteers. We could not pull this off without all of you. Thank you so much for all of your input, for all of the donations, for everything. Thank the police officers for their time and their patience out here, because it takes a lot of patience. We had a full house. And I would like to thank the people who came out, because it was packed. And without them, we wouldn't even have a reason to put this on. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of them, all of y'all. And also, I would like to encourage the public to make it their business to attend council meetings, whether you attended in person or online. If you want to know what's going on in the city, you are welcome to come to these meetings. You can look at it. You can do all of that. You can also go to downtownvillarica.com if you want to find out what's going on with Main Street. Look at the city of Villa Rica. But I would encourage you to make it your business to be in the know.
Good advice. Rhonda McCullers, the president of the Main Street Board. All right, Mike Hagan. For the public hearing? Absolutely. Jeff Fuqua, same thing? Yes, sir. Makes sense to me. And Tammy Dewberry.
Also here for public hearing.
Okay. So I have reached the end of the list. Is there anybody who did not sign up who would like to be recognized for public comments? All right, I'll close public comments. And let me go back to, if I understood Mr. Young, I want to clarify that for you. So the part of the rebuild that was addressed today was the part from the intersection of Shoreline and Villa Rica Parkway down to somewhere close to, it's not specifically located there, but somewhere close to where that spur will eventually go off. The comment you heard about the lower volume of traffic was the anticipated lower volume once that spur is completely in place. Only the lower volume to the left we wouldn't expect that there would be nearly as many folks traveling around to the left side once there is a route up to the right. So that's what I think we were talking about, but I can get with you after if that doesn't answer the question. Okay, let's move on to council update. So before we do that, I'm just going to do a couple of things here. Tonight I want to talk about two people who are very special to Villa Rica, and both have given tremendous service to the city. David Mecklin has been our city attorney for exactly 30 years. He began serving in that capacity, I'm told, because I wasn't here 30 years ago. Well, not up here anyway. On September the 7th, 1993. I was still in high school, Villa Rica. For reference, 1993 was the same year that Beanie Babies became a fad. In fact, Ms. Marchman was serving on council that year and seconded the motion to hire David. He has provided expert legal advice to 5 mayors, 20 members of city council, 10 city managers, and 4 police chiefs. He has sat through 616 total meetings of council. Throughout all these years, David has also served as city attorney for other Carroll County communities. His word is literally law, and he has advised those of us who have been privileged to lead the city through crises and triumphs. His wisdom has been greatly appreciated by all of us, and so has his gentle humor. Please give David a round of applause.
Thank you, I appreciate that. It has been a life sentence.
I'm not sure I asked for commentary. I'm just kidding. David, we really appreciate you. 30 years is a long, long time, and certainly to be in one job and to do this. Also, she's not here tonight, but I wanted to recognize Sarah Andrews, our Deputy City Manager and Chief Financial Officer. It came as quite a shock a couple of weeks ago when Sarah announced that she would be leaving the city to begin a new career in the private sector. I wish that she could be here tonight to hear the wonderful things that we all have to say about her. She first came to the city in 2015 from Granbury, Texas. She grew up in Fort Worth, and believe it or not, she wanted to be a TV meteorologist. But instead, she completed her undergraduate degree in accounting. When she came here, she was our chief financial officer. But in 2021, her hard work and incredible knowledge of city government earned her a promotion to deputy city manager. Tom may be the city manager, but it was Sarah's warm demeanor, which he does not have, and kindness, which he does not have, that won over staff. She has given numerous briefings to me, council members, and members of the public. I can tell you that all our city staff members are very sad to see her go, because she was more of a friend and a sister than a supervisor. But we all wish her great success. We knew that we couldn't keep her here forever. Please give her a round of applause. And speaking of city staff, I wanted to thank all of those who helped make our 45th Gold Rush Festival such a success this weekend. I believe this was truly one of the best festivals we've ever had, and the concert was amazing. And for those of you who attended, you know there was almost no room for anybody else. It was absolutely spectacular. Over 4,000 people attended the concert. I was told on Friday afternoon that it looked as if every folding chair in the county had been set up around the meal. There were over 50 floats in the parade on Saturday, and there were also 50 vendors of merchandise and food taking part that day. Thanks again to everyone who made this such a success. Looking ahead, the Hispanic Heritage Multicultural Festival will be held at Gold Dust Park on September 23rd from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. This event is being sponsored by the Villa Rica Public Library. It's going to be a day filled with delicious food and lively music. On October the 4th, Villa Rica Main Street will be hosting the last leadership luncheon of the year. I think I can promise you that the guest speaker will have some interesting things to say, considering that is me. The next night, October 5th, the Ghost Train will begin at the Pine Mountain Gold Museum, and tickets are already on sale for $13. This is one of West Georgia's most popular and unusual haunted attractions. Remember, the ride is kid-friendly from 6 p.m. until sunset. But after dark, it will be only for those who don't mind being scared out of their wits. And I can tell you that train books every single night. The only thing that keeps it from running is bad weather. And finally, looking ahead to October 28th, the city will be hosting the annual Thrill at the Mill and Zombie 5K. This is a family-friendly event that will feature contests and other entertainment. So that is our wrap up for tonight. Do any council members wish to be recognized for council updates? Ms. McCoy.
I'll be really quick. Mirror Lake is having their semi-annual yard sale this weekend. So please, if y'all are looking for a good deal or you need something, I encourage people to come by and check out the different people who have stuff out there for sale. If I wasn't lazy, I would have stuff out there. But I was a little too lazy to do it this time.
Well, if you think you have a few extra items, you can bring them up to my house because we'll have some stuff out there for sale. That's a good reminder to folks. Anybody else want to be recognized? All right, hearing none, I will close the council updates and I will move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is a single item that encompasses all things the city council would normally approve with little comment. Each of these items were discussed at the council work session earlier this afternoon, and it was the unanimous consensus of the governing body to place the following items on the consent agenda. I'm going to read through the consent agenda, and when I am finished, I will ask for if there are any objections, and if there are none, I'll ask for a motion to adopt the consent agenda. Consent item number 1, consider the adoption of a resolution authorizing the execution of documents related to the issuance of the Urban Redevelopment Agency revenue bond, including intergovernmental contract with the agency. Consent item number 2, surplus 2 vehicles. Consent item number 3, fiscal year 23 budget amendments 156 through 168. Consent number 4, Villa Rica social media policy. Consent number 5, design of Punkintown Road rebuild. Consent number 6, survey for shoreline lift station force main. And consent number 7, improvements to road surface on Mirror Lake Dam. Are there any objections to these items? If there are none, I will ask for a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
I move to adopt the consent agenda.
Have a motion from Mr. Carter to adopt the consent agenda as presented. Is there a second? Second from Ms. Marchman. All in favor? That's unanimous. All right, let's move on to governing body. So we have, because of the sheer number of meetings that we've had over the last several weeks, we have about, looks like maybe 10 sets of meeting minutes that we need to adopt. I'm going to go through these one at a time. I'll ask for a motion on each item, a second, and we'll vote that and then move to the second one. Is there a motion? Who wants to be recognized for a motion?
Okay.
All right, Mr. Carter. Item A1, approval of May 23, 2023 special called council meeting minutes.
I move to approve the May 23, 2023 special call council meeting minutes.
All right, have a motion from Mr. Carter to approve the May 23, 2023 special called council meeting minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. McCoy. All in favor? That's unanimous. A2, approval of July 11, 2023 city council meeting minutes.
There was one correction on that, and I pointed it out to Leanne. It's in the way the names are set up on it. Other than that, it's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll move to approve the July 11th, 2023 city council meeting minutes.
All right, have a motion from Mr. Carter to approve the July 11, 2023 city council meeting minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second from Ms. Marchman. All in favor? All right, that is unanimous. A3, approval of August 8, 2023 city council meeting minutes. Mr. Carter.
I'll move to approve the August 8, 2023 city council meeting minutes.
I have a motion from Mr. Carter to approve the August 8, 2023 city council meeting minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Marchman. All in favor? All right, that's unanimous. A4, approval of August 18, 2023 special called council meeting minutes. Mr. Carter.
I move to approve the August 18, 2023 special call council meeting minutes.
Have a motion from Mr. Carter to approve the August 18, 2023 special called council meeting minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. McCoy. All in favor? That's unanimous. A5, approval of August 22, 2023 special called council meeting, millage rate, public hearing, number 1 minutes. Mr. Carter.
I move to approve the August 22nd, 2023 special call council meeting millage rate public hearing number 1 minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right, that's unanimous. Let's go to A6.
Mayor, I abstain on that one.
Say it again.
I abstain on that one. 'cause
All
I
right,
wasn't here.
I have that one, Madam Clerk, 3 to approve, 1 to abstain. Mr. Montan abstains. A6, approval of August 22, 2023 special called council meeting budget workshop minutes. Mr. Carter.
Move to approve the August 22, 2023 special call council meeting budget workshop minutes.
All right, I have a motion to approve from Mr. Carter. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. McCoy. All in favor? Did you raise your hand?
No.
All opposed? All abstain? Let's do the same thing. All right, A7, approval of August 22, 2023 special called council meeting, millage rate public hearing number 2 minutes. Mr. Carter.
Move to approve August 22nd, 2023 special call council meeting millage rate public hearing number 2 minutes.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Carter, a second from Ms. Marchman. All in favor? That is unanimous. All right, A8, approval of August 29, 2023 special called council meeting, millage rate number 3 minutes. Mr. Carter.
Move to approve August 29, 2023 special call council meeting millage rate number 3 minutes.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Carter. Is there a second?
Second.
A second from Ms. Marchman. All in favor? All right, that's unanimous. A9, approval of August 29, 2023 special called council meeting budget workshop minutes. Is there a motion, Mr. Carter?
Yes. Move to approve August 29, 2023 special call council meeting budget workshop minutes.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Carter. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. McCoy. All in favor? All right, that's unanimous. And finally, A10, approval of September 5th, 2023 special call city council and public hearing for fiscal year 2024 budget meeting minutes. Mr. Carter.
Yes. Move to approve September the 5th, 2023 special call city council and public hearing for fiscal year 2024 budget meeting minutes.
All right, I have a motion for Mr. Carter. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second from Ms. Marchman. All in favor? That's also unanimous. Woo! It's a lot of work. Me and Mr. Carter did all the work. All right. Moving on to tab B, community development. First up, B1, RA-06-18, extension of Avamore rezoning at 55 and 63 Goldworth Road. This item has a public hearing. I'll ask Ron to introduce the item.
Good afternoon, everyone. So this item is an extension to the rezoning at Avamore. We do this annually. The staff has done an analysis here on what has been completed to date as far as all items that the council has required as part of the conditions. And we have proposed a potential action here as well of approval with several conditions. There's 10 total on the cover sheet here. And so the applicant is here tonight to speak to his application.
Okay, before we hear from the applicant, council, do you have any questions for staff? All right, hearing none, would the applicant like to speak?
Yes, sir.
All right, come on up here. Give us your name and address for the record, and we'll recognize you.
Good evening. I'm Jay Davis. My address is 55 Goldworth Road, Villa Rica, Georgia, 30180. Thank you for seeing me tonight, council. I appreciate it. Thank you, citizens, for being here. We're up here tonight for annual renewal on the Avamore planning and development that was approved back in 2019. Expectation is, according to the way that the administration of planning and developments works, that we'll continue to be here on an annual basis until ongoing conditions are met as we go. So we're here tonight. I'm grateful for it. Thank you. Progress so far, we've made a lot. I've spent a lot of good time putting together the actual plan unit development that was approved back in 2019. We've adapted over time to consolidate the multifamily. We have spread out the single family into units that are appropriate and useful for the builders that want to build here in our community. And the senior housing has only grown stronger in that time. We've got plenty of room for it here in the town, and we will have some affordable components to that so that, unlike seemingly everywhere else, it will be unaffordable, unfortunately. So our place should be able to address some of those conditions. Good news on the outflow on the back end of this is that I already have contracts to sell 80% of this deal. As soon as the development's complete, we got single-family sales all lined up with a contract. We have multifamily lined up with a contract and earnest money. We have senior housing, 2 groups in competition now for that. And then we have on the commercial side, immediate care group and primary care group for part of it. We've got a grocery, hopefully is coming along the right way. There's some people in the audience I don't want to talk about groceries in front of, Mr. Fuqua, but everybody else, we're doing our best to bring good folks here to town. And so that option of actually having sales at the end of it is very high. Currently, I have retreated from trying to fund all this myself, which has been one of the major hangups over the last few years. It's very difficult to get a loan the size that's necessary for that development because the way Phase 1 is set up and the way that we worked it out with city administration initially, Phase 1 is heavily commercial and heavily retail and multifamily, and those components are the most difficult ones to get funded right now. We've overcome that. I got 3 separate groups, not only that have made offers for the investor side, but that have actually given me contracts on the investor side to help me with the financing to get us through this. Rate rose about 6.5 points in the last year. In case you are unaware of how money gets borrowed for big projects like this, it really requires a stable lending environment, and we haven't had one of those. I think we're about topped out now, according to all the financial models we're working with. So the investors are pretty happy and the lenders are pretty happy, and we're headed in the direction of actually being able to fund the development on this side. We're excited about being able to get started. Let me get back exactly to that. My council person has asked me specifically about timing. It looks like the way that we can get the loans closed that will actually take time to get this done should be able to start staging at the end of the year and begin moving dirt early in the next year. So beginning of 2024, we should actually be moving dirt out there, and hopefully we go ahead and close the multifamily site and the grocery site within that time frame. We're really excited about that opportunity. And Phase 1 of the single family. Senior housing is going to lag a little bit behind that. They're probably in the 12 to 24 month zone from now, but we should be able to get to all those pieces. Finally, something I don't want you to lose sight of in all this, this development was approved because it's going to bring the kind of quality of lifestyle and living standards that we hope that we all want to live in. You know, you've got nice houses, sidewalks, street lights, walkable spaces. It's got the Gold Nugget Trail going right through the middle of it. It's got an opportunity to help the city with a new regional lift station that will give the city the opportunity to increase the security of its infrastructure. It gives us the opportunity to help the city do a lot of things in that regard. We've got the water tower to address, and there's several conditions that staff has proposed. I don't really object to any of those. We can meet the standard all the way along. We've met it so far, and we'll continue to do that. Finally, tonight I just want to thank you again for the opportunity to be here, and I'll reserve any time I got left to address any questions you may have.
All right. Any council members have any questions for the applicant before I do a public hearing? Okay. I'll just ask you to step to the side for a minute. Let me do a public hearing, and then we'll come back to staff. Is there anyone here who would like to speak either for or against this extension of rezoning? Okay. Seeing none, you do want to speak? Yes, sir. Okay. Come on up here. Give us your name and address for the record, and we will give you 3 minutes.
Thank you. Leslie McPherson, 103 Chadwick Place. Unlike a new developer coming in brand new now, this is something that does go back to prior approval with the council in 2019. And I think with the concerns of explosive growth, we have to remember that this was something that was started at that time. I think we also understand that 2019 was the year before 2020. And we might understand why projects were affected by what happened in COVID, then the economic conditions afterwards, and it might take longer to move a project forward. I only have one question, and that is this. Is there any type of loss or cost to the city to not, if they were to extend it? If you were to extend the zoning, is there any downside for the city to do that? I know there's a downside for the developer if it weren't extended because of the money that's already been invested, to the thousands and thousands. But that's all. That's my question. I know you don't answer questions here. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak for or against this? Okay. So I'll close the public hearing portion of this, and just as a housekeeping note, I'll just say that this item did not require a public hearing. But because we put that on the agenda, I wanted to still go ahead and do this public hearing tonight to give anybody an opportunity to speak who may have wanted to speak. Okay, I'll go back to staff now. Is there any questions for staff at this time? Okay. Hearing none, do we need to hear again from the applicant? Is someone ready for, want to be recognized for a motion? All right, Mr. Montahan.
I make a motion to approve the Avamore zoning renewal for 12 months, subject to the 10 conditions as outlined by staff.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion that is encompasses a huge number of conditions that will allow this to be extended again, as Mr. Montahan has just laid out. And I think this is a good opportunity for both the applicant and the city, and I appreciate that we have an opportunity to do this. Mr. Carter seconded that motion. Is there any further discussion? All right, all in favor? That will be unanimous. All right, thank you. Let's move on to B2, VA-07-23, variance from sections 9.291 and 9.291E of the Villa Rica sign ordinance for Fuqua out parcels. This item does require a public hearing, and I will recognize staff to introduce this item. Ron?
Yes, Fuqua BCDC Villa Rica Project Owner LLC has applied for 2 variances for 6 out parcels located at 360, 364, 368, 372, 380, and 384 Mirror Lake Boulevard. The applicant is looking to place wall signs on the rear of each out parcel, in addition to having those rear signs as the same size as the ones in the front, which we typically would not permit. And so the staff has recommended approval for the placement of wall signs in the rear. However, we have recommended denial for the change of the size of the signs. And so the applicant is here tonight to speak for their application.
Okay, before we hear from the applicant, does council have any questions for staff? All right, hearing none, is the applicant present? Would you like to come up and speak? All right. If you'll give us your name and address for the record, we will recognize you.
Sure. Name's Mike Hagan with Fuqua Developments, 5449 Oxford Chase Way, Dunwoody, Georgia. And appreciate you guys, the mayor and council members, taking time to evaluate our request here this evening. Essentially, as Ron said, we're developing the new mixed-use center on the west side of Mirror Lake Boulevard, across from the Mirror Lake development, and we are engaged with a number of out-parcel users who we are talking to, who have some of whom have expressed concern that the current code only permits, in our case, 1 wall sign for these buildings, which are essentially, there's 6 out parcels that we have. They're freestanding buildings, so that each of them has four individual sides, all of which can be viewed, and only having a wall sign on, I guess, what would be the front, Mirror Lake Boulevard, is a bit of a challenge for them, because a lot of their customers will be cross-traffic with the new grocery store and the people that are shopping, cross-shopping throughout the center, throughout the development. that would be kind of leaving the grocery store, leaving the inline retail shops, and perhaps looking to do some cross-shopping with the out-parcel users, not being able to really tell, which of those buildings is which if they only have one wall sign facing Mirror Lake Boulevard. So our understanding had been, is that under code, if you have two frontages, you get two wall signs by right. And although our internal access road, which I kind of highlighted in purple there on our exhibit, has two frontages, if you will. It doesn't technically, the purple road doesn't, in talking with Ron, doesn't technically meet the requirements of a second frontage, a street, so to speak, in terms of the technical criteria. It's got some head-in parking spaces and not exactly the right width. But so from our perspective, it's a little bit of a technicality that they wouldn't otherwise be permitted a second sign in any event. And so we're just here to ask for each of the parcels to be entitled to a minimum of two signs.
A minimum of two signs, or
Yes.
or at least two signs?
Well,
I guess
for
is-
each individual business establishment to be able to have,
To be
two
able to
signs.
have up to two signs?
yes, up to two signs.
Okay, because you're not asking for four.
No, sir. No. We're asking for that each individual establishment have a minimum of two signs.
Right, because you have two frontages,
Right.
sort of.
Well, as
I
we
know
see it,
technically
yeah,
you don't, but
technically
I
that's right.
I mean, I think generally
Exactly.
that could be interpreted. All right.
And so what we had asked for, Ron alluded to the size of the signs. That what you're seeing there is sort of the a typical front elevation for a two-tenant building that we might have. That's in fact one of the buildings that we have on our what we call out parcel 2, and those yellow boxes represent 2 square foot of signage per lineal foot, if you will, of building facade. We were asking for a similarly sized additional sign that they could put on the side or the rear, depending on what they perceive their best configuration of that sign would be, best location. I think Ron had recommended that the second signs for each of the establishments be only 1 square foot per lineal foot, which would be half the size of that yellow box that you see there. And we would obviously love to have the 2 square foot have a sign similar to the primary facade sign size on the back or the side, but in any event, we'll leave that for y'all to evaluate. But that's what the request was.
Okay. All right, counsel, do you have any questions for the applicant? No? Okay. So council didn't have any questions for the applicant right now. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Ron brought up one question. The idea was that we make sure that each parcel establishment, business establishment, have at least 2 signs. Now, we've been talking about some other businesses that may land at the site, one of which being a bank that is at the corner of the string of out parcels at the new connector road.
Mm-hmm.
And both they and the gas station across on the north side of the new connector would essentially have, in that case, 2 technical frontages and the rear access road. So there's a potential they may ask for 3. We're not to that point with them yet, but I assume they would, have to come in and make that request on their own, on its own merit. What we were looking to do here is just get at least that second one for everybody.
Okay. All right. Anybody? Ms.
Well, I just wanted a clarification. I'm sorry. So I was taking a look at when you take a look at the renderings, though, my machine is just not loading anything. I'm sorry. When you take a look at the renderings, though, it looks like you're trying to propose 2 signs on each facade, or frontages, I should say.
That building, what the request was, it was actually, that building is actually 2
Okay.
businesses. We've got a coffee shop and a smoothie restaurant there.
Let me get you to wait just a second. Sorry about that. That's what happens when you are in a city who's right next to a rail. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, so, and that's an important distinction. In our case, we only have 1 multi-tenant building on an out parcel currently. But the request was written to be a second sign for each business establishment, i.e. each tenant, each use,
Right.
within a building. So like the donut shop would have 2 signs, and the smoothie tenant
Not
would
per
have 2
parcel,
signs.
per,
Not per parcel, correct, or not per
Those
building,
aren't-
if
not
it's a
per-
multi-tenant
Right.
building.
I
Kind of like an inline retail shop building, each business, each tenant in there would have its own sign.
right.
And what about the next one though? Is that the same? The one below it,
Down below.
number 8.
Big drawings.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's the same building
That
then,
is
right?
exactly
Okay.
right. Yeah, so that,
All
that,
right.
that's the rendering of the backside of the building, and those yellow boxes that you see are the proposed second sign for each of those 2 business establishments. Those are drawn at the 2 square foot per lineal foot of frontage
Mm-hmm.
area that we're requesting. Those,
Yeah, this makes sense to me in this type of development. I mean, you have cross-traffic coming behind these businesses here, coming from the grocery store, because these are in front of the grocery store. They're facing what is currently called Mirror Lake Boulevard, but behind it would be a crossroad, and then behind that is the actual, the
Right.
grocery store.
Right.
So that makes sense to me. Okay, any other questions for the applicant? All right.
Well-
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, I don't really have an issue with the additional sign on the rear. I think, my question, is it really necessary to do the 2x2, or would the 2x1 just not suffice? I mean, considering you're talking about potentially people I mean, they're not driving down Mirror Lake Boulevard, Punkintown Road, they're in a parking lot, or they are exiting a grocery store.
yeah, it's a bit of a subjective thing. I mean, if you were parked, outside the grocery store, you're many hundreds of feet, away, by the time you reach the wall of that building. But, we would like them as shown, but we certainly understand if
I mean, but what would be the reason, though, to have them?
just
as
to
shown?
just to provide better visibility for folks as they,
Okay.
even as they're coming eastbound on the new connector road, they would, they could be, traveling 35, 40 miles an hour coming through there and
Okay.
look over and get a glimpse at the backside of these buildings. We'd like them to be able to see, those signs clearly. So
Okay.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense, from Villa Rica Parkway. Okay, anything else for the applicant? All right, Mr. Carter.
I guess the problem I'm seeing is that you're asking for more than we're allowed as far as the size of the secondary sign goes. It says the primary sign is not a problem, but apparently secondary frontage is the one that you're wanting to expand, make it twice as big as we allow. And why is that?
again, essentially the same, just for visibility purposes, the out parcel tenants are obviously signage to a new business, is really important to them, and so everybody's sort of asking, if they can get a sign of a similar size on the back that they have on the front. So that's sort of how we tailored the request. But I understand Ron recommended denial of that component, but we'll accept whatever you decide.
Well, okay, are we finished with the applicant? All right, let me go back to staff, because I want to ask. Thank you. So, Ron, let me ask you a question. So if if the council were to go with your recommendation, which is to deny, he would still be permitted to have, and then to approve the second one, he would still be able to have two signs. It's just that second one would be half the size of the first one.
That's
Is that
correct.
correct?
If the second motion is also approved.
If the
Is
council
approved.
were, however, to agree that it may be appropriate to allow the second sign to be the same size that they are requesting, then that motion would be to approve. Is that
It would,
correct?
yes.
All right, let me do a public hearing. Is there anybody here who would,
I got a question first.
all right,
Ron, what's the ratio between the front and back signs on Take 5?
When you say ratio of square footage? I don't don't know off the top of my head.
Are they not the same size?
I think they are.
I believe
That's
they-
what I'm waiting on you to say.
I would have to go back and look at the application. I don't know that
Okay.
right in front of me.
But I remember we took this up maybe 2 years ago when they came.
Yeah, I recall us having a request for 4 wall signs, one on each wall of the business, but I don't recall what the square footages were.
Yeah, their model required that they have those. That was sort of
Yeah.
the way that they had
was a corporate
spec'd those stores out, and they had to have the same thing in the front as in the back.
And it's functionally just like this.
Yeah,
Grocery
because
store
behind
in
is
the
a grocery
back.
store.
Drive lane in the back.
Yeah. It's an access road. So okay.
I have a question. For
Yes, ma'am.
You're approving one, you denying the others. So what is the reasoning for that?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Well, I took them as 2 separate issues. I tried to bifurcate these. So with the second request here, that's kind of the primary one. So if they want a secondary sign on the rear, we didn't really see much of an issue in-house with having, an additional sign. It's just with the rear signage and being that these are not the dominant sign for the project. And in addition to directional signs and many other types of temporary signs that can easily identify the parcels in question, we didn't find it prudent for a new development, a master plan development, to be oversaturated with signage. So we had some concern with that, and so if we were to allow for a second or additional sign in the rear, we would have preferred for it to be a smaller sign, being that there are additional directional signs and many other types of signs out there proposed.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Let me do a public hearing. Is there anybody here who would like to speak for or against this variance? Yes, ma'am. If you would come up, give us your name and address for the record, and we will give you 3 minutes.
Thank you very much,
Yes,
Mayor,
ma'am.
Council. My name is Tammy Dewberry. I live at 187 Parkway Circle. I am one of the 2 homes that are currently directly affected by the Fuqua development. I have listened to this. I don't have any issue at all with the second, with just the standard signage. But the additional size would reflect into my backyard. And that is where my family gathers once a month, every month, dinner at Mimi's. And having that impact of whatever's going behind me, which is a separate issue. Let me finish with this issue. Having the neon lights in my backyard every day, all day, would not be okay. The smaller signage, it's just part of doing business, but I don't see any reason that you need to have additional signage. Couple other things to address here. I heard briefly earlier about the hearing earlier today about Punkintown Road. I was at work. I can't stream when I'm at work and watch these hearings. I'm not sure where your logic is that having this spur is going to alleviate that traffic, because that traffic leads to 61, which leads to Dallas, which leads to Marietta. I take it every day to get to Marietta to work. So that was something I wanted to mention, just in case. And the other thing that is really concerning me that brought me here tonight is the fact that I've been in this meeting before. I have been on the website, and this gentleman just showed me these elevations that you had up. I don't have time to dig through every meeting and every attachment to see what changes might happen in this development. As a homeowner directly affected, I would really like my city council to make sure that that's easily, readily available for me, that I know when changes have happened. The original drawings 2 years ago had townhomes going behind my house, and now I've seen elsewhere, not from you guys, but elsewhere, that a Mavis tire is going behind my house. And that directly affects the value of my property and my enjoyment of this property. I moved here 3 years ago when my husband passed away. I'm aware I'm running out of time.
Oh, that's okay.
I bought this house to start my life over. It is my family's home, and they thank me every month when we gather for having built something. And it means so much to me. And the very fact that a tire shop might be adjacent, and my city council did not tell me that there was a change in the plan, breaks my heart. And to know that I may have to sell and move away and find another place to start over. I love this city and I have enjoyed living here, but this is really hard for me. I have no problem with growth and development, but this is hard.
All right. So give
That's
me
it.
your address again.
187 Parkway Circle.
Parkway Circle.
I am the
All right. Thank you.
directly behind. This morning, you'd have thought I had a diesel engine under my house with the work going on.
Okay. Thank you. I'll follow up with you in a little bit. Is there anybody else here who would like to speak for or against this? Come on up. Give us your name and address for the record. 187. Come on up. Leslie. I was actually calling Leslie. Sorry. I didn't even see you raise your hand. All right, go ahead.
I can't speak to her issue. Our rental house is right along the edge there. That we do have family that lives in there. That's where my daughter and my grandson live. I can't speak as an engineer in regards to sign size, but I know what it's like to be a customer. So when I went through the packet and looked at all this, I know what it's like when you're driving through a parcel and you want to see where the Panera Bread is and you're back at the grocery store. So I don't know if that's 50 yards or 100 yards. There's people that know more than me about that. Now, and because I can't speak to the other person's concern, I do know it makes a difference in the sign. If you have a sign like Villa Rica Elementary has that flashes neon at night, or the one over that wouldn't be allowed now on Dallas Highway at the pharmacy, something like that, it's obnoxious if you live there. It's extremely bright. It's just a regular lit one may not be bad at all. And really all I care about with my property that's there more so, because some people are going to love the fact that they can walk to the store, walk to a restaurant, and it has those advantages. At the same time, I'm pretty good as long as we have a buffer. You know what I'm saying? So we're not maybe looking right at the back of a shop and that sort of thing. But that's the comment I have, is just a regular customer, a regular person looking at signs, and you're on the back side and you want to see where those things are. Ashley Place, the other places we shop. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, sir, Mr. Fuqua, you want to come up? Leanne, do you have the volume on that? Okay, good. All right, go ahead, sir.
Jeff Fuqua, 15 Piedmont Center, Atlanta, Georgia.
Yep.
Thank you for hearing us tonight.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate your issue. I do. In fact, I was there sitting on that site today, and I could see. Just look at the. Yeah, we walked in there. I'm kidding you, but no, you're pretty close. You're pretty close. So. We would say that we would agree not to put a sign on the back of that building closest to her house. That's our most northern out parcel. Is that out parcel 6, Mike? Yeah, parcel 6. On that one, since it's close to her house, we have a large buffer there too, but since it's close to her house, we'd be fine not putting a sign on the back of that parcel.
Okay, I appreciate
If that helps you. Does that work?
All right.
Okay.
Well, we'll get to that in a minute,
Okay.
but
Okay.
you can say what you want to say.
Okay.
We're not going to make a deal right now.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, does anybody else here want to speak either for or against this variance? Okay, hearing none, let's go back to staff. And would that be possible for you to make that a condition if the council were to go in that direction?
Yes.
How would we do that? Would we just make it part of the motion, David? Is that what we would do if we get to that? All right, let me. Well, I'm not going to take that up right now, but ma'am, I'm going to find you and follow up with you about one of the things you talked about. But I need to move on with this. Council, do you have any further questions
Yeah,
for
I got
staff? Mr. Carter.
Are all these signs we're talking about, are they neon signs, these lit up signs, is that what we're talking about?
The applicant hasn't indicated what the illumination will be.
So they could be or it could not be, is that the case?
No, we actually don't allow for neon signs. We do allow for internally lit and externally lit signs, LED, any type of lighting source, but we don't allow for neon tube lighting.
So just on light.
Right.
Or
correct.
off. It's either on or it's
Internal
off.
light lit
That's right.
signs where
No
you can read it.
strobing or.
Okay, Ms. McCoy.
That was going to be my question, because it was mentioned like flashing signs. That correct me if I'm wrong, but the recommendation says we're specifically talking about wall signs, correct? The signs
Yes.
that are on. We're not talking about the ones that are going to be like directional or whatnot.
Nope,
So
just
do we allow wall signs that are like what you'd have at like an elementary school where they're kind of like move and you've got to read them?
No, we don't
Or we
allow
don't-
for any moving text or any display boards
Okay.
that are electronic.
Okay, I do have a little bit of a question. I was a little confused when we were talking about the signs, whether they're whatever size, but when we're doing the ratio, is it per business, the linear footage of the business, or is it the linear footage of the building?
It's the linear width of the building itself, so of that storefront, that tenant storefront area. So we're actually taking that figure, and there's 80% of that figure that we can use as a sign area for the width calculation. So we would double that times 2, so we can get the maximum square footage permitted.
Okay. Okay. All right, that makes sense. Thank you.
All right, any other questions for
Yeah.
staff? Mr. Carter.
You've got in here, Ron, that the applicant proposes 2 wall signs per property. If we got one building with 2 on the front, 2 on the back, isn't that 4 signs for the property?
That's fair. So there is one out parcel that does have 2 restaurants together, if I'm not mistaken.
Just like he was showing up
So
there.
that's actually the exact example that he was showing. That's the only one that's like that, though.
But if the approval is for 2 wall signs per property, that's going to be in conflict with what will actually happen with that parcel.
Right.
So that would have to be modified as well. I think that it really, to one of the speakers' point, and it certainly is what's crossed my mind. How often do we go into a shopping center where you drive along behind these stores and you don't know which of the stores have what you're looking for? Here, it's not going to be quite as difficult because you only have a few different parcels. But in my view, I don't see how we have any harm by allowing 2 signs on each of these individual buildings, one in the front and one in the back, even if they're the same size. Because as you come down Villa Rica Parkway, you may not know what that business is if the sign is just too small. So, I think I would be inclined to ask council to consider that they would approve both of these, but there does need to be the modification, as Mr. Carter points out, with regard to whether it's per property or per individual business, whatever that terminology is, Ron.
Per business.
Per business?
We say that in the application, I believe I asked for business establishment.
Right,
Right,
but
and
we're
the-
looking at the motion here, and so that's not what it says. So, anyway, y'all hang on, let us do this up here. Anybody have any questions for Ron? All right, is anybody prepared for a motion?
Yeah, I'll take it.
All right, Mr. Carter.
On the first recommendation here, as far as size goes, since they're not neon flashing type signs, I don't see much difference between one a little bit bigger that's internally lit. So I'll move to approve the request of variance from section 9.29, parentheses 1, parentheses E, by Fuqua BCDC, Villa Rica Project Owner, LLC as presented.
Okay, David, is there a way to clean that up just to differentiate between per property and per business? I'd like to modify Mr. Carter's.
That's just size.
Yeah, that is just this one. Okay, we'll take that other one up in a minute. You did good. All right. Mr. Carter made a motion to approve the requested variance from section 9.291E by Fuqua BCDC Villa Rica Project Owner, LLC, as presented. Is there a second? Second from Mr. Momtahan. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, that's unanimous. All right, Mr. Carter, are you interested in taking on number 2?
Sure, let's go with it.
All right, let's go.
Okay. It doesn't say anything about the businesses in there, but I move to approve the requested variance from section 9.29 parentheses 1 by Fuqua BCDC, Villa Rica Project Owner, LLC, with 2 signs permitted per business.
All right, that sounds good enough to
And
me.
there's one other exception there,
Yes.
with the exception of parcel 6, I believe it was.
Okay,
With
is that
the-
the correct parcel?
With the
It's not.
exception of parcel 6.
All right, with the exception of parcel 6.
Is that the right one, Ron?
That's the right one.
That is the
Okay.
great one? All right, that's relief for the person's house. Okay, Mr. Carter makes a motion to approve the requested variance from section 9.291 by Fuqua BCDC Villa Rica Project Owner, LLC. Say it again.
2 signs per business with the exception of parcel number 6.
2 signs per business with the exception of parcel 6.
Second.
And a second from Mr. Momtahan. Am I going too fast for you, Leanne? Very good. All in favor? All right, that is unanimous. Okay, let's move on to B3, VA-08-23, variance from sections 7.0226 and 8.094A of the Villa Rica zoning ordinance for 380 Mirror Lake Boulevard. This item also requires a public hearing. Ron?
Yes, VA-08-23 is GX Development LLC. They're seeking a variance from section 7.0226 to reduce the required minimum number of parking spaces from 39 to 30, and a variance from section 8.094A to permit a drive-through in the front yard area. This is at out parcel number 5, 380 Mirror Lake Boulevard. And the staff is recommending denial for the reduction in parking spaces and denial for the drive-through window being placed in the front yard area.
All right, so tell us about that. Let's take first the parking spaces.
Yes, so the development is, they are proposing only 39 spaces. We do require 30. There's 2 businesses on site. One is a restaurant, one is a gasoline station. The applicant is looking to put up a Circle K. It's a 1,785 square foot, 50-seat, in addition to a 50-seat quick service restaurant. So we did calculate a total of 39 spaces required. They're looking to do 30.
Okay. All right, and then let's go to, let's talk a little bit more about the section 8.094A.
Yes, so we've had this request come before us once before. This is for a drive-through that's located in a front yard area. So this is a corner lot, if we can picture this. The corner is Villa Rica Parkway and Mirror Lake Boulevard. The applicant is looking to have the drive-through swing around so that the window is facing the parkway side of it. So the driveway through would be directly facing a right-of-way, which we don't actually permit in the city.
So the front of the building faces Mirror Lake Boulevard.
Yes.
The left, if I'm facing the building, standing on Mirror Lake Boulevard, the left side is along Villa Rica Parkway.
That's right.
And that's the side where they would like to have the drive-through.
Yes.
You wouldn't allow, according to what you're saying our code is, you wouldn't have allowed that on the left side. You would not have allowed it in the front on the Mirror Lake Boulevard side.
Yeah.
If there were a road along the back of it, would they also be precluded from having a drive-through on the back of it?
If it's an actual public or private right of way, as we define it, then that it would also be the same situation where they would need a variance. It would still be considered a front yard.
And what if they had one on the right-hand side? Would they just be precluded from having a drive-through altogether?
It would be the same situation there as well. Yeah, any time that a right of way is involved surrounding a lot, the drive-through window it would be affected. It wouldn't be allowed to be in that yard.
But the answer is yes, they would be precluded from all four sides of the business if there were roads that ran along all four sides.
That's right.
Which is similar to what's happening here, because there is a road on the right-hand side as well, Mirror Lake Boulevard across the front and Villa Rica Parkway on the left, and then the access road in the back. That's not what's exactly happening, but I just wanted to make sure that we were clear about that. All right, council, do you have any questions?
I was actually
Mr.
asking
Montgomery.
Leanne if she can pull up the site plan, because I can't, will not
Do you
pull
have
up
the
my-
site plan, Leanne? Yes. All right, let's pull that up, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That was quick. All right, do you have some questions on that?
Well,
Mr.
so Ron,
Montgomery?
I mean, if we don't approve this variance, where would they have to put their drive-through window at?
It would be in the section that's directly in the rear of the convenience store and restaurant, in between that and to the west of that, the detention pond. That would be an acceptable location. Also, which I would assume would not be possible, but the northernmost side of the site as well, that northern facade wall could also possibly be a drive-through, but it would be obviously not much queuing space to be able to make that usable.
Okay, so, I'm sorry.
Sure.
So the window would have to be, if I understood what you're saying, here?
Yeah, it would have to be somewhere on that rear, somewhere in a rear yard area or a side yard area, so that where your finger is a acceptable location.
But would they meet the queuing if they put it here?
Trying to see the queuing that's on there right now. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Looks like there's 3
6,
cars.
7, 8, 9.
I mean, I guess they could.
Yeah, they have quite a number there. They have more shown than what's, what they need. So, assuming that it looks like they can do it, they would be swinging the cars around the northern side facade. You see that? You'd enter through the north, you'd make the left around the back of the building, and then you would take your order, and then, from there.
All right, any other questions for Ron? Ms. McCoy?
Yeah.
All right.
So I'm gonna have to say, you're proposing that the drive-through go here and then queue like that? Is that what you're saying?
That would be an acceptable location. That would be a conforming location with our current zoning ordinance.
Okay. And then, or were you suggesting that they queue the other way to the front?
Well, actually, the initial one, around the rear.
Around the rear? Okay.
Would make more sense.
As I'm looking at this, it doesn't, that seem, if that's what the building's gonna look like, that almost seems like the only place they can put a drive-through.
Yeah, that's what it appears. So, just basically looking at this, I have talked with Mike Hagan, Stoney Abercrombie, the engineer for this. We did speak briefly about possibly other arrangements, and I'm not sure if Stoney is here tonight or not. It doesn't look like it. But he said that there were some configuration issues as far as being able to enter the drive-through from the northernmost facade wall area and coming around that side. He didn't go into detail about what that would be as far as design-related issues, but he did hint at that being an issue and a concern for him. So that's what prompted him to file the application.
Does that got you?
That's got me.
All right. Anybody else?
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Carter.
I'm looking at the part 1 of this thing about the number of spaces, 30 versus 39, and it says A vehicular service window requires a minimum of one space per 2 seats, parentheses 50 seats. What does that mean?
Yes, so we have a parking calculation a table that's within the zoning ordinance for all different uses in town. And for a convenience store, we require for one parking space for every 300 square feet of net floor area within the building. And so that's how we're able to back into how many spaces are actually required.
All right, Mr. Carter?
Yeah, I don't understand where he came up with 39, but there's not a whole lot of space around these buildings to put parking spaces if you're going to have a drive-through. That's the problem.
All right, Ms. McCoy?
So, by looking at it, okay, first off, when I heard they wanted to go down lower, I was like, ooh, yay, less parking spaces, but the surface area is not changing for the parking. It's just making them wider and bigger, making the parking spaces wider and bigger, correct? If they go from 39 to 30.
No, it's just because of a lack of space on the lot, so they can't actually fit in those additional 9 spaces.
Okay.
Yeah, so they try to use as much of the lot area as they possibly can. I think that detention pond really ate up so much of the lot area that they really were scrambling to try to find parking spaces.
Okay. So if we deny this, then the parking spaces are going to be
39 required.
They're going to be 39 required, and they're going to be fairly small, correct?
Either way, they would be the same size that's required. The ordinance has very specific standards for the size of parking spaces that we have to follow.
So then they would have to find that area somewhere else, then, right?
Yes, for those 9.
By making the building smaller
spaces.
or something of that nature.
Yep, that's right.
All right. Anybody else? All right, let's hear from the applicant. Is the applicant here? Come on up here, sir. Give us your name and address for the record, and we will recognize you.
John Cowden, 1575 Northside Drive, Atlanta. Mayor, City Council, thanks for hearing us. So we've got this project, we're under development, and we're excited about it. The first issue I'd like to speak to is the parking issue. I know there's probably some confusion, and there's a gray area in your ordinances. So as you can see, there are 30 dedicated parking stalls around the building. But what your code doesn't outline or specify are the parking stalls allowed at the pumps. So in many jurisdictions, as you can see, we've got 6 MPDs, 6 pumps, so to speak, and 6 pumps call for 12 parking spots. 1 parking spot on either side of the pump. And so in the count of 30, we are not counting the additional 12 parking stalls at the pumps. So if you count those pumps, or those parking stalls, excuse me, we actually have 42 parking stalls, which surpasses the requirement. But your code doesn't specify. And so there's a gray area. And per the second variance that we're applying for the stacking window. Well, first, before I continue, do you guys have any questions? Okay. And then as far as the second variance goes, so we're concerned about the safety and the circulation and the traffic flow around the site. If we relocate the pickup window to the rear end of the building or really anywhere, it doesn't really fit anywhere else on the site, as Ms. McCoy pointed out. But if we can fit it on the rear of the building, as cars continue to stack, the cars will stack into drive lanes, and that could be a safety issue. That could cause serious issues if we need to get emergency vehicles in to the parcel. So we see both of these variances as reasonable, and hope council and mayor can approve.
All right, thank you. Let me see if the council has any questions for the applicant. Okay.
What's the restaurant?
What's that?
What's the restaurant?
Well,
we do not know.
I thought it makes a difference, but I'm just curious. Okay.
Oh.
Baguettes for everyone.
All right, let's go back to staff. Okay, so let me take just a minute to look at this, because it does seem to me, and I didn't think about, which I guess is why he's the applicant, right? He's advocating for himself. I didn't think about the fact that typically we're not thinking about temporary parking, which is what's going on at those gas pumps. Not everybody's coming in to spend, more than a couple of minutes in that establishment. So under those circumstances, I can see where there might be, it might be reasonable to vary those space requirements. And I also find it to be difficult to understand why we wouldn't be willing to vary. I can't recall going to this type of a setup at a gas station at any exit I've ever stopped at where they had a Wendy's or Arby's or something on the end. I've never seen the pickup window anywhere but on the side. And so it seems to me that those are reasonable. Maybe our ordinance just didn't contemplate this type of development because we'd never seen it before. I don't think we have one like that. I mean, we've tried really hard not to do variances. It's what's dragging this out so much, but when they seem incredibly reasonable, and to not do them seems like it'd be a burden, too big of a burden on the business, I think that that's something we should consider. Council, do you have any questions for Ron at this point?
Ron, do you know, I looked at earlier, this convenience store looks approximately the same size as the Quick Trip over off 61, and I don't know if there's 39 parking spaces there. Maybe they're not because it doesn't have the gas station. The restaurant perhaps, but I feel like
It
even
would have been less
Yeah.
without the restaurant because
Right.
of the QT. Yeah.
But what they've done is constantly modified these racetracks and these QTs to have their own internal restaurants in there. It's almost a full meal in there now.
right.
There's no seating, but it's almost a full meal. There's no drive-through, yeah. Okay, anybody else? All right, who would like to be recognized for a motion? Anybody?
Were you going to have a public hearing?
Did I not already do that? All right, let me do the public hearing. Is there anybody here who would like to speak for or against this variance? Anybody? Yes, ma'am. Come on up. Give us your name and address for the record, and we will give you 3 minutes.
My name's Mary Woodfin, 9801 Waters Edge Point, Villa Rica. I guess I'm going to go back to a comment that was made by the developer, applicant?
Yes, ma'am.
That he's concerned with traffic flow, and so little concerned about. I'm not even sure exactly where this business is going, and I don't have a clear picture in my head, but I have a little concern about if there is traffic flow issues with putting a drive-through in, maybe we don't need to have the drive-through. That's all.
All right, thank you. All right, anybody else want to speak for or against this variance? All right, I'll close the public hearing, then I'll revert back to council and staff. Any questions for staff? All right, is there anybody who would like, do you have a question, Mr. Carter?
I don't see the diagram. Would you put that diagram back up, please? It says the drive-through window is located in the front of the building. Looked to me like it was on the side, but.
It is on the side. Because there's a road that also runs along that side, he's calling that a front. So if they had put it on the front, it'd be a front. If they put it on the side, it'd be a front. That's the point I was making in the beginning, that at some point, they're all fronts. Does anybody have any questions?
Well,
we
didn't get this diagram.
I would just make a note here for.
Sorry.
We didn't have this diagram in our package. It's the first time I've seen it. It's here.
Okay. Mr. Montan?
I would just make a note that the proposed motions by staff are not consistent with the recommendations of staff. So just making sure that if you are following staff's recommendations, that you need to make sure you're following. You can't rely on the motions alone, put it that way.
Oh, I see that.
So just making a note for anyone.
Yeah, that's inconsistent there. All right, well, we have two items here that will need action, Is there someone who'd like to be recognized on the first item, which is the variance from section 7.0226 by GX Development LLC?
I'll make a motion. I'm going to actually make a motion to approve the requested variance from section 7.026 by GX Development LLC as presented.
All right,
I'll second it.
I have a motion from Mr. Momtahan to approve the requested variance from section 7.0226 by GX Development LLC as presented, and a second from Mr. Carter.
And just
All
to
in-
clarify, that's the one which limits it 30 spaces to the 39 required.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. All in favor? All right, that is unanimous. The second item is on the variance from section 8.094A by GX Development LLC. Who would like to be recognized?
Okay. I
All right,
make
Mr. Momtahan.
I make a motion to approve the requested variance from section 8.094A by GX Development.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Momtahan to
Second.
approve the requested variance from section 8.094A by GX Development LLC as presented. A second from Mr. Carter. All in favor? That is unanimous. Okay, let's move on to B4. All right, this is the comprehensive plan, second public hearing. Earlier today, we established that this was still in draft form, and we have made sure that although it was available on Civic Clerk, this is like a grand exodus. I'm going to remember that when I come to y'all's place. All right. Although this is available on Civic Clerk, it wasn't easily available on the website, so we made it available earlier today. And so it's there for the public to go and review. And Paul is here to present on this. So, Paul, let me recognize you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Go ahead.
We are wrapping up the comprehensive plan update, so this is required.
Give me just a second, Paul. Do
Sure.
you have another of those handouts that you gave earlier?
do.
Miss McCoy.
I have her one, but she wasn't here for the earlier meeting, so it's okay. I had it on hand.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you. So we are wrapping up the comprehensive plan process. The plan is updated every 5 years, as required by all local governments in Georgia. So we are building upon the vision established in 2018, which set a really good vision for the city. And we started the process in April, and we had our committee meetings. We had 4 committee meetings, and we had 3 visioning sessions in partnership with the visiting sessions you had about other initiatives going on in the city. So we had good turnout for that. So this is the second required public hearing as per required the state planning requirements. So this is just to let the public know that the document is available for review. The document will actually remain in draft form until adoption in October. So there's probably 30 or more plus days before the actual document is approved. So there's plenty of time for people to go comb through it and everything. So so this public hearing is really meant to inform the public of the availability of the plan to be reviewed. And but like you mentioned, Mayor, there are some parts of it that are still in draft form that are being finalized and will be finalized before submittal to DCA.
All right, thank you. Council, do you have any questions for Paul? All right, if not, I will do a public hearing here. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on the comprehensive plan? All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, and I'll revert back to staff. All right, do you have anything to add to that? Because there is no adoption tonight. This
No
item will
adoption.
come up in October, but the document is readily available online.
It
Paper
is.
copies have been handed out to the council earlier
Paper copies
today.
are also in our offices as well at community development in case anybody
So
wants
you
to
can stop by the VPlex Community
Yes.
Development and pick up copies of these
Mm-hmm.
in paper if you would like a copy of that. Thank you for that. Okay, well, thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Let's move on to tab C, Finance. Jennifer Hallman. So C1 is adopt the 2024 operating and capital budget. We have gone through months of preparation of the budget, several budget hearings, public hearings, and now we have reached the day when we expect to pass out this budget. So Jennifer, I will recognize you.
Okay. As you had mentioned, we have had budget workshops, individual budget meetings with staff, along with the city manager, and 2 public hearings. So the last meeting that we had, I brought before changes or reductions in the budget due to rolling back the millage rate. So these numbers that you see on this resolution, as well as in the presentation that I gave at the last public hearing, reflect those changes. So now the total budget for all funds, including the general fund, all the special revenue funds, the capital funds, the debt service funds, and the enterprise funds, total $45,701,707.
All right. Council, do you have any questions for Jennifer?
There's no resolution, but I can make one up. There's no motion.
Oh, there's no motion on this?
Well, the I guess you could read off the resolution, be it resolved.
I can make it up.
That sounds fun. Is there any questions for Jennifer before we do that? Okay, I will recognize Mr. Carter for a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion to adopt the 2024 operating capital budget for fiscal year 2024.
As presented.
That's about it.
As presented?
As presented, yeah.
All right, Mr. Carter makes a motion to adopt the 2024 operating and capital budget for
It's fiscal year 2024.
for the fiscal year 2024 as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. McCoy. All in favor? All right, that is unanimous. Thank you, Jennifer.
Okay.
All right, and you're still up. We will now get a financial update from you for July of 2023.
Okay. We'll first talk about cash. You can see that we're at $31.4 million, down around 2% compared to last year in total cash. General fund, we're at $7.7 million, which is down 16%. But remember, due to the Fuquay or Mirror Lake Connector development agreement, we had to transfer around $6 million or $7 million into that fund. And those funds came from the general fund and the water and sewer fund. You can see that we are dwindling down on our 2015 Carroll Splost and Douglas Splost, 2016 Douglas Splost, because we're ramping back up on the 2021 Carroll Splost and 2022 Douglas Splost. Residential permits and taps. Building permits, 56 year-to-date through July at $129,132. Water taps, 68 at $104,500, and sewer taps, 67 at $268,000. Local option sales tax is still performing very well compared to the same time period last year. 11% more in July at $200,613 compared to $181,000 last year. On the Carroll side, Douglas County side was 5% increase from $163,000 to $172,000. Hotel motel taxes are performing well. October through December, we had a 3% growth. January through March, a 3%. April through June, 9%, and just for the month of July, we went up 15%. And overall, through July, we've had a 7% increase in our hotel motel taxes. Water and sewer fund is our first business activity, or what you may hear enterprise fund. $8.7 million in revenue and $8.9 in expenses. So a total loss right now of $196,000. Water department has experienced probably the largest increase, while sewer department has the largest decrease. But in the water department, the variances, the salary and benefits have gone up by $30,000, professional services up by $23,000, maintenance and repair of building $25,000, water tank maintenance $43,000, and then our water purchases from both Carroll County and Douglas County up by $61,000. The other enterprise fund that we have is our sanitation and solid waste. Total revenue is $1.4 million, and total expenses is just under $1.4 million. So we're actually have a net income of $56,000
$287. Last but not least is our self-funded insurance. Cash sitting in the bank is $1,683,000. We have had savings totaling $496,833. The contributions, which is the revenue that comes into this fund, is from both the city or the employer portion and the employee of 1.9, and through July we've had 1.4 million of expenses, which is both admin cost and claims. And that is it.
All right. Council, do you have any questions for Jennifer? All right. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
As always, very good. Okay. Mr. Barber, you don't have anything under your name. Are you prepared with the city manager's report? All right. Well, let's do it.
So we've approved the budget, and one of the questions that we can ask now is it enough? We recently took a look at what we need to do to prepare for the coming years. And to recap that a little bit, remember that a lot of the proposed development that we have talked about since 2020 is still not in construction. Most of it is either in engineering or clearing and grading. So we are still literally years away from realizing revenue from the development that we've been talking about for 3 entire years. When we get to the point that these facilities are constructed, whether they're townhomes or apartments or houses, and whether they're fee simple or rental, we're going to see a significant increase in our digest. In addition, we're going to see an increase in our customer base for utilities. And several things have been at work over these last 6 years, and one of them initially was for water and sewer to be self-sustaining. Another was we wanted to prepare for a big increase in the debt payment for the sewer plant. And we can confidently say, because we're looking in the rearview mirror now, that we accomplished both of those goals. We've made water and sewer self-sustaining. We generated the revenue we needed to make the additional debt payment without subsidy from the general fund. And in addition, to help us with the next big jump, we refinanced the debt so that we have a fairly level payment for the rest of that bond issue. So nobody's going to have a parade for you guys for what you've done, but the financial condition of water and sewer is night and day different than when I got here. We can pay the bills, we can cover the debt, and we've made 6 years worth of repairs. And what you saw tonight in the update is a reflection of the fact that after about 5 years of focusing on sewer and focusing on sewer and focusing on sewer, trying to get the lift stations to work and the manholes not to leak and the pumps to work, that we're starting to move our focus to the water plant for the first time in the water system. And you saw that in Jennifer's highlights, that almost all the variances are on the water side now because we're starting to focus on that side of the house. The one thing that we still have not done, and it's because of the way the debt is laid out, is we have not made the water portion self-sustaining and the sewer portion self-sustaining. So they're self-sustaining together, but it's because the water side generates more revenue compared to expense than the sewer side loses. So the sewer is still not self-sustaining by itself although it's getting close. But the water side more than makes up for it because it has no debt. Does that make sense? All the debt's on the sewer side, and that's a big payment. So we're not totally where we want to be, but we've made great progress and we're getting there. We're also on the cusp of a significant increase in development fees. So there's 3 primary one-time fees that we're going to receive when these projects get out of engineering and start going vertical. We're going to get building permits on the general fund side, which is a one-time payment. And we're going to get water and sewer taps, which are also one-time payments. So we need to be careful that we use that money to pay for one-time capital expenses. We can't use it for salary because it's not going to repeat, but that's coming. And so the next 3 years, we're going to see an unusual increase in expenses and then probably a drop, right, when we get on the other side of those one-time fees. Another thing that we were trying to do starting in 18 was to get ready for the end of the water contract with Carroll County. That contract was entered into in 2005 at a point in time where Carroll County Water Authority really needed our volume. And they entered into a contract with us that at the time maybe saved them financially, but over the 20-year life of the contract has not kept pace with inflation. And so we treat about 2/3 of the water that we need. We buy the other third from Carroll County, but we do so at a below market rate. And that's going to end the end of March of 2025. And so what we've been doing to get ready for that is we've been doing annual rate increases, including this budget that we just approved, that we typically put them into effect on January 1 of the following year. We've been doing that over and over so that we're at least at a point where our bottom tier rate is going to cover the cost of that water. So it's always going to be cheaper for us to make water than to buy water. But in our case, it's really cheap because there's no debt associated with it. We can fuss and say what we want to about having a 60-plus-year-old water plant, but there's no mortgage, right? And so at some point in time, we're going to have to bite that bullet. And that bullet could be in different forms. It could be a major renovation, which I don't think is likely. More likely would be a new plant, which is $20 million. Or we could get out of the business and become a permanent captive water customer. So those are big decisions that we're going to make as a group in the years to come. What we have done in these 6 or 7 years is we've moved our base water rate from $3.30 to $3.84, and we're about to increase it another 5, okay, which will take us up just over $4. And we expect to see this next contract at least in the mid 450s. So we're still not there, but we're moving in the right direction so that we're at least covering our costs, trying to avoid Sarah's infamous candy bar scenario, where we buy the candy bar for $1 and we sell it for 75 cents. We're trying to avoid that, okay, with the water. Now on the sewer side, it's a different story. When I first got here, we had I don't remember the name, Ralph Tellis had done a rate study for us. In my first year here, we raised the sewer rates 35%. 35%. That's more than we've raised the water rates the whole time I've been here. In the second year, we raised them 30%. So when you compound that, that's a 75% increase in rates, but we haven't raised them since. And so the sewer rate has maintained the same level now for 6 years, but what that's done is still not quite covered all of the operating cost of sewer and the capital and the debt. So we're still not quite there, but we're getting close. No proposed sewer rate is in the immediate future. The other thing that we've done that I was not really on top of, but I wanted to try to communicate this, and I'd like to do this again in the next retreat, is talk about how this works. But we are significantly investing in ourselves, and we've been doing it ever since I got here. For instance, y'all recently approved a $1.7 million contract to rebuild part of the west plant where all the sewer lines connect, right? Where the old west plant used to be. Y'all have consistently done that since I've been here, and it adds up to a huge number. I mean, we've literally invested in ourselves millions and millions and millions of dollars on the sewer side, whether it's a manhole rehab program that's just completed, the sewer lift station rehab program that's underway right now. I mean, we have put our money where our mouth is, and what it's done is it's made our collection system more effective. What does that mean to us, right? We have 2 sewer plants. We have a bigger one that's capable of 2 million gallons a day, and a smaller one that's about a fourth of that. That little one is running at 80% capacity, and there's no opportunity to make it bigger. So we need all the additional business that we're sending that plant to get diverted to the big plant, right? Which costs money. And again, that investment in ourselves is going to allow us to completely build out Mirror Lake, which is 25 years in the making now. I think it started around 1998. So we're doing the things to adjust to the way that development is occurring so that we can continue to be at least 100% self-sufficient on the sewer side. Now, another thing that's happened, and I'm not going to pretend that I understand everything about this, but another thing that's happened recently is we went to EPD and we asked them for what's called a waste load allocation, and what we specifically wanted was the ability to discharge into Cowan Lake. So right now when we treat at the north plant, that discharge goes into the creek that's created from the outlet structure of the Mirror Lake, at the Mirror Lake Dam, right? So when the water gets high enough, it goes into the outlet structure and it runs underneath the dam and it becomes a little creek, and that's what we discharge into. On the west plant side, there's a creek that runs beside City Hall through the Grady Brown property, beside City Hall, and there's a creek that runs behind Tri-County Plaza, and they meet back behind the Housing Authority, and it runs along the railroad, and that's what we discharge into at the west plant. So what we asked them was for the ability to choose to either continue doing that, to discharge into that creek, or to discharge into the north end of Cowan Lake. And we were given permission to do that and to keep the permit for the discharge into the creek, which is specifically what we wanted. So this is a major, nobody's going to have a parade over this, but this is a big deal. This is a major first step toward us generating enough volume in the lakes to make it make sense for us to maybe one day build a new water plant. And by doing that, to not have to buy water from a neighbor, right, which has been the goal, right? We've talked about that till y'all are probably sick of hearing about it, but we've actually taken the first step, right? And it's been, I shouldn't have said that because I don't know how long it is. We applied for this, I'm going to say in the spring of 22. So it's taken a year and a half to get just the first answer. So this is like a 10-year project, okay? But we've gotten the first positive response from EPD since I've been working on this. Y'all are so excited, I can tell. But this is a biggie. If we're ever going to become water independent, that we get this permit. So when I look at the budget right now, just like we talked about when we were in the retreat, we're making progress every year. General funds getting healthier, water and sewer funds getting healthier, the self-insurance fund is getting healthier, sanitation fund is healthier. I mean, those are all really positives for us. We've built cash. We're much more credible when we go to somebody like GFA and want to borrow money. They have told me that they would loan us as much as $10 million to do GFA projects, which is a big deal. So y'all have a lot to pat yourself on the back for. Nobody's going to do it except y'all, so you might as well pat yourself on the back because, you know, this stuff is complicated and it takes forever and most of it you can't see. But we're really making progress, really making progress. And this budget is just another step in that direction where we've got millions of dollars of capital in here that's going to take us another step forward with road improvements, new roads. The TAD is huge. I don't have to tell you that. New development. I mean, it's a huge step. And we approved it in like 5 minutes a while ago, like no fanfare. But it's a huge deal. And y'all should take some credit for what we're doing.
All right. Y'all got any questions?
Yeah.
Mr. Carter.
Yeah, that was going to be my first question, but you stole my thunder there. I want to know about the EPD thing because that's top of the list. I want to know how long it's going to take us to lay a line to pump that water. We put in a $30 million West plant with the idea that it would produce drinkable water. Actually, nobody would drink it coming out of that plant, but that plant does produce water that you could drink coming out. It's real clean water. So how long is it going to take us to lay a line to pump that stuff back up to Cowan Lake?
The actual construction part of it's not the problem. It's getting all the permits.
Well, it's a process. How long is it going to take?
It's going to take 10 years.
Because we need to speed that up if we want to increase our water supply.
We're a year and a half into it. But just to give you a for instance, you're talking about this, making drinkable water at the sewer plant like it's no small thing. Our systems out there are so current that part of that process that we use is only found in one other sewer plant in the entire state. So when Villa Rica designed that plant, they didn't halfway design it. It's got some technology in it that only one other place in the state has.
What capacity are we running out on the west plant?
We're running about 55% on the
So-
west plant.
And we can produce some good water if we can get it back up to Cowan Lake.
Right.
And then
Right.
that's the solution to your water problem right
And it's
there.
another reason to divert flow from the north plant to the west plant, because it can go into the lake too. Right? So,
Yeah, I think when you mentioned that we didn't look all that excited, you got to keep in mind that we've been sort of at this for a long time, and the fact that we actually found out that we had that, we had been permitted that allocation, we just recently, but the letter was issued in the spring, in March, but we just recently were able to ascertain what that approval looked like. And when I ran for mayor back in 2019, I did a video over at the West plant, and at that discharge, I did drink that water that was coming down right before it went into the creek. It's a big deal what we're about to do, because we are about to turn. So if you think about it, we use about 1.7 million gallons of water a day. Now that includes some loss that we continue to try to recover, but we only make about 1.3 million gallons of water a day, but we discharge over 1 million gallons of water a day. So to be able to turn that water back around, pump it back up, back through those facilities is going to go a long way. I don't know if it solves that problem, Mr. Carter, because we're continuing to grow, but it certainly gets us really, really close to being able to solve being self-sufficient on the water. I think sometimes people worry that we don't have enough water. What we don't have enough of is raw water, of our own water, but we are capable of buying a significant amount of water from the two authorities around us. And this has sort of been a chicken and egg process that we've been going through, where we grow enough, but we try not to push it to the limit of what we're capable of handling here. And it's sort of a back and forth process that we've done. And I think we've done a really good job of balancing that, even though I think sometimes people think, well, there's a lot going on. They're not wrong. There is a lot going on, but it's sort of spread out. And as we begin to take pressure off, you asked the question about the West plant, 55% capacity over there at the West plant, but we're at 80% capacity over at the North plant. We've got to take pressure off that North plant and move that back to the West plant so that we can continue the build out that's already been approved over Mirror Lake. In fact, it was approved back in 1998. We've just made some rezoning adjustments for what we do over there. We didn't create that. That was created back in 1998. We just had to be responsible for how we would handle the pressure that it put on our infrastructure. So I think that, when you talk about those things and you sort of refer back to we don't seem all that excited, we're excited, but we're exhausted. And we also know that we've been going through this for years and years. And when you talk about those increases we did in 18 and 19, they were absolutely necessary. Absolutely necessary. It's the only thing that put us on a sound financial footing with those sewer plants. And that's why we don't worry about those in the same way now that we did before. All right,
Yeah, let me,
Mr. Carter.
the other thing about the West plant, I was involved in development of the West plant. I was involved in the design and the construction of the thing. We allowed for another circulation set up to go out there, so it's actually a futuristic plant. It can produce water way down the road. It can process a lot of sewage. If we can pump that back into the lake, we're going to go a long ways toward keeping ourselves self-sufficient.
It's interesting that you say that, because one of the things I hear from staff is that they don't use the word futuristic, but they say this thing is so far advanced for what we do. Right, so the futuristic may be the right word. It makes it complicated for us, though, as we have to do repairs and upgrades and maintenance on that. But it prepares us long term, even though it's a little frustrating right now, because there's really only one other one in the entire state that we can look to for how to operate that plant. All right, anybody else have any questions or comments for Tom or for David? Anybody? All right, do we have an executive session? No. David, again, 30 years. been a long time. This is the first time, well, the last few times you've had this facial hair. We're going to keep that?
For a week or two.
For another week or two? All right, it looks good on you. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Have a motion from Ms. Marchman to adjourn.
Second.